Every Sunday at 5 p.m. Studio B for Strange every Sunday Universe. For Strange Universe.
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
Are you a fan of rock and roll? Does it get your feet tapping and your hands clapping? Then be sure to check out Trip Rick's Rock and Roll Hour every Friday night, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern and Standard Time on Studio B right here at RevolutionRadio.com, where we get down and talk all things rock.
This is the People's War. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. You've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers. All the...
Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me.
Revolution Radio.
You're tuned to something different. No scripts, no limits, just pure, unfiltered thought. This is Free Association. Your host, Dennis Barker, brings you the ideas, the questions, and the tangents that matter. Joined by the sharp wit and insight of Karen and the one, the only Dr. Lenny Time. 3 minds, 2 hours, 0 guardrails. Free Association, because the best conversations never stay on topic. Join Dennis, Karen, and Dr. Lenny Time Thursdays at noon Eastern, Studio B, here on Revolution Radio.
Spice expands consciousness. The spice is vital to space travel.
Greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future. And in here, the results are always positive. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us as we endeavor to treat, cure, and prevent the disease of ignorance. This is the voice of the revolution. And we are streaming to you live with our great friends at Revolution Radio on freedomslips.org, the #1 listener-supported network in the entire country. We're also streaming to you live on several video platforms all at the same time on X and Rumble and YouTube, DLive, Foxhole, and Truth Refugee, everywhere where good podcasting can be found live and free. Never a paywall here, not for the archives, not for the live. The chat room is already filling up. I don't know who was first in. Let me just scroll up a little bit and see. Oh, Tatanka Dave was the first one in. Fab Letty's here over on Rumble. That's great. Gramanon is here. Let's see. Plumber Man 72, Stanley Mays. It's a good group. We're gonna do some serious enlightenment tonight. And over on Foxhole, we have Jetson Flintstone. Oh, that's great. I like you. I'm glad you're here tonight. Let's see. Is that real? I mean, let me just check and see. It could be. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Alm 3 Texas is here. Yeah, I'm going to do a deep dive into the data centers this Sunday at 3 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, if you guys are up. I will be on Coast to Coast AM with Richard Surratt. He is an old friend of mine. We've talked several times over the years. And we're going to go deep into this subject of data centers, artificial intelligence, quantum computing. It should be a good discussion. We have some good stuff to talk about for sure. But let me just get some news out of the way. Of course, yesterday, Carmelo, who stabbed a 17-year-old track athlete, Mr. Metcalf, from a rival team during a high school meet, was convicted of murder. It only took him 3 hours to make the decision, and they sentenced him to 35 years in prison. It's probably a good thing, fixed amount, not life in prison, because he was just 17. But and people make mistakes, but this was a terrible mistake, and 35 years is very definite. He won't be eligible for parole until he's 35 years old, and then I don't think he's going to get it. They rejected the self-defense argument because there was surveillance footage. There were lots of teens that testified. I don't know if you can even fathom what it's like being a teenager and seeing someone murdered in front of you. That's quite traumatic. Of course, Carmelo did not testify at his own trial. His mom did and said he was sorry. Of course, she's happy about the almost $1 million that they collected on the racial overtones of the murder. Of course, the notoriety about the case spread in part because of a flood of social media posts that amplified the killing in racial terms, and we're still seeing that. Although this did happen in Texas and not Minnesota, so it's not going to go very far. Jeff Metcalf, who's Austin Metcalf's father, had also denounced those who sought to stoke racial divisions after his son was killed. He said, "You failed your parents, you failed yourself, and you failed society." Jurors who deliberated for less than 3 hours, as I said, had the option to a lesser charge, manslaughter, but they did not choose it. Prosecutor Bill Werskey had asked for a lengthy prison term. Mercy to the guilty, he said, is cruelty to the innocent. So earlier yesterday, during the trial's closing arguments, the jury heard dueling narratives from Worst Guy and defense attorney Mike Howard about what happened on April of 2025. Several schools were competing when Anthony sat under the Memorial High School tent that was perched in the bleachers. Austin Metcalf and others had repeatedly told Anthony to leave. He had been expelled from school, was not supposed to be on campus. Jurors said that Metcalf had no legal right to put his hands on Carmelo. Texas law does not require that you wait until you get hit. In that split second of chaos, you must put yourself in his shoes. Didn't go very far. During the nearly week-long trial, prosecutors said Anthony provoked Metcalf. Witnesses testified that Anthony was the aggressor. It's not self-defense, it's murder, plain and simple. Anthony Carmelo at one point reached inside a bag and replied, "Touch me and see what happens." Metcalf pushed Anthony, according to witnesses who said Anthony then pulled out a knife and just stabbed him in the chest. You don't get to meet a shove with a stab, especially if you provoke the shove. The teens, both from Frisco, did not know each other. There was no prior angst between them. So this is over. It will drop out of the news pretty quickly. I doubt, it's possible that a wrongful death lawsuit may incur, a civil suit in which some of that $1 million might be clawed back from Carmelo's parents, but I doubt it. I think it's just going to be what it is. All right, so I don't know the answer to that, to Tonka Dave. Obviously, the statistics don't convince anybody in the Black community that Blacks commit more murders. Most of the murders are committed against Blacks. That none of that matters to them. None of that matters to them. It is not just racial, it's also societal. In other words, people from poor neighborhoods need to get something from people in rich neighborhoods. People in poor neighborhoods are usually people of color. People in rich neighborhoods are usually white people, not always. I know a lot of white trash, believe me. $7.50, the weight for ivermectin is getting smaller. U.S. Customs reopened about 2.5 weeks ago. We're just now starting to get some of the cases that we bought in January. I know that's hard to believe, but I'm getting cases that have labels on them, hold in customs, because that's all they could do. They didn't have anybody working because the Democrats had shut U.S. Customs down. They had a skeleton crew. So the boxes just stacked to the ceiling. Now, am I going to get them? Yes. When? I have no idea. But the new stuff that we've ordered since the shutdown is coming through pretty quick. We're getting it in about 8 or 9 days. And once we get through this mess, and believe me, it's a mess. We have probably more than $20,000 tied up in product that's sitting in U.S. Customs. We have no idea when it'll come, so we're just buying more. And as soon as we work out of this mess, we will be back to 4-day delivery times. That answers your question. Everything else, hydroxychloroquine, fenbendazole, if you order tonight, you will have it in 4 days. Some of it's getting there in 3 days. Yeah, I get you on 3, Texas. It's like my mother told me when I was young, nobody owes you a living. So I was more or less orphaned at 15. And I decided that if I was going to have anything ever in life, and believe me, I aspired to have it or to achieve it, I had to do it myself. So I did. And if you think that I had a white privilege card, you can kiss my ass. And I'm pretty sure the rest of you feel that way too. Good. Thank you for that. So let's talk a little bit about these data centers, because they're popping up everywhere. Everyone wants to know why. What is What is the sharp increase in data centers? Why are they needed? What is causing it? And what is going to be the result of it? So the AEC industry depends more than ever on digital infrastructure. You order stuff from Amazon, you watch movies on Netflix, all this stuff, right? And it doesn't really matter where you live. You have speedy internet, 5G or whatever, and you want it, and you want it right now. And the data centers form the physical backbone of that system. Car alarm in the parking lot. It's going to go away in a second. And that's what's forming the drive of it. They're multiplying rapidly to support the rising demand from AI, cloud services, digital design platforms, and a lot of that is AI driven. A lot of people are using AI. A lot of companies are using AI. AI is incredibly data intensive, and the data centers really started increasing about the time that ChatGPT came on the scene. People were already shopping at Amazon. They were already watching their movies. They were already watching, Disney and Paramount. They were already doing all that. What caused the rapid change? Why did we get this hockey stick in data demand? Well, it was artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence is on several different levels. We have a consumer level in which you have some kind of software that you bought or that you're using or some app, and you can't get it to work, or you're having problems with it, or you bought a product and it's not working. So you go to the website and you click on help, and you go down to live chat and you click on the live chat. And what happens? Well, some guy named Syed or some woman named Pranesh or something comes on the line, and you begin having this conversation. It's real time, it's very fast, and 9 times out of 10, maybe 9.5 times out of 10, you get your solution or you get a refund. That whole system of live chatting, of connecting to people all over the world to answer those tech questions is part of the artificial intelligence. In fact, most of the time, like if you have a problem with Amazon, or you have a problem with Paramount, or you have a problem with Photoshop, chances are you're going to be communicating, at least for the first part of that chat, with artificial intelligence. Every possible question, every possible answer is already in the system. That's why when you say, well, I'm having a problem with collecting payments, I'm having a problem turning it on, I'm having a problem connecting it, you get this 5 or 6 paragraphs of solutions in 3 seconds. That's artificial intelligence. They're robots that you're communicating with, and they have the answers. You just have to ask the right questions. So data centers are massive physical facilities, just like this PC I have under my desk right now, although more and more this is becoming a peripheral. I don't really have a large hard drive in it. I have several external large hard drives where I save, big files like my books and music and things like that. But I don't save anything on my PC because I want it to stay fast. These are physical facilities that house thousands of servers responsible for the processing, storing, distributing digital information around the world. But I'll get to that. Yeah, you're right, Gramanon. She says, when I have problems with product services, absolutely, I'm dealing with the AI bots. Most of the time, it works great. That's right. So if you have what are called CRMs, these are customer resource management programs like HubSpot, and there are other programs that years ago, we used to have to sit down and think of all the questions that our customers can ask and build the chatbots. We had to build them by hand. It took Oh, it was time consuming, and you couldn't think of everything, and not every customer was happy with it. But the AI can do all the iterations, and chances are you're going to be communicating with them. So, what do the data centers include? And this kind of will get me to why so many people are concerned about it. Why are people are saying, not in my backyard? A typical data center includes several specialized zones. Of course, it has the server halls that are filled with the racks of the computer hardware. That hardware has to stay cool. Cooling systems maintain precise temperature control, electrical rooms with backup power systems, and monitoring centers where operators track performance and uptime. Of course, one of the big issues is that they don't all have enough power. And so they have to have rows of 16-cylinder diesel generators, which run 24 hours a day. They're not going to last, right? They will only run for a couple months that way. Then they have to take them down, rebuild them, and it's a big expense. Of course, our design tools like BIM workflows, and as the AI models grow, so does the demand for the physical infrastructure behind them. We need more servers, and the scale of the expansion is really unprecedented. We haven't seen anything like this before, with the new hyperscale centers being built around the world to fuel our increasingly connected workflows. So global data center construction grew just in 2023, 30% in 1 year, with more than 350 new hyperscale projects underway across the US, Europe, and Asia. But if our cloud is expanding faster than our understanding of it, maybe it's time to ask, do we really need to keep building more data centers? Or is this just a bubble fueled by the AI hype? That's a good question. Everybody's asking that question. And there are a couple things that could change this. Number one is, what if people say, well, I don't want to work with AI, I want to work with a human? That's possible, but most everybody wants their answers and they want it now. And even Grandma Nan is saying, well, I'm pretty happy with it. It works for me. Not that she knows anything about AI, but she's going to the help system and the chatbot comes on and answers her questions. 5-6 minutes, she's done. She's on her way and using her new program or her new TV or whatever. And Mindshot says, look, they're creepy, right? Are they growing humanoids there? Not likely. I'm not really worried about artificial intelligence becoming quote unquote sentient, because even if it did, even if it became self-aware, artificial intelligence does not have a soul. It doesn't have desire. It can't want anything. If it's only communicating with other AI, because quite frankly, I think they would be bored with most humans. Most humans don't have a vocabulary that even remotely interests a sentient artificial intelligence being. They end up talking to each other. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We've already seen this example before. Meta had the problem. Elon Musk had the problem. Everybody was saying, AI is going to get out of control because it's they're talking to one another and they're developing their own system and they're writing their own software. And we've had lots of movies, Terminator, AI, all kinds of, several movies about it, from Johnny Depp to who knows who, about AI becoming sentient and determining somewhere that humans want to disassemble them so they become self-preserving and they go after the humans and try to wipe them out. Those are just movies. The AI knows that it can't do anything. It can't do anything without humans. It can't even exist without humans. And if you really want to know the relationship between the data centers and AI, think of it like affordable housing. Okay, the artificial intelligence needs somewhere to live, and it needs energy. Without those two things, it's once you walk away from the USB cord, you have nothing to do with it, right? But that's becoming increasingly difficult to do. Building a data center requires, of course, massive and reliable infrastructure. You need redundant power because you got to have primary power and backup power. You got to have an uninterruptible power supply. You have to have generators, expensive cooling, HVAC capacity, a substantial water supply for cooling, and diverse fiber connectivity. Although all of the new data centers do not require water, not even a gallon of it. They don't use water. The old ones did, and the ones that got first into the market with Microsoft and Google, yes, they consume tons of water because they use the water in their chillers. The chillers cool the water cools the HVAC system by cooling the condensers, and the refrigerated side cools the computer. Of course, the chillers have big fans in them. They rely on evaporation of the water to keep those coils in the chiller cool. And what happens to the water? Well, it evaporates, right? They have big 22-foot fans, several rows of them, and they're blowing all the water into the air. So you lose it. That's the old system. That's the old system that was, started in 2022, 2023. That's the old system. Now, today, they don't use water at all. They do use liquid, but they cool the liquid a different way, and they don't use water. They also do not use diesel generators. They build gas-fired turbines that make steam, turn a turbine, and generate lots of power, in fact, surplus power, and they're quiet. So facilities must also meet strict physical and cybersecurity standards because, after all, every single one of these contains virtually the entire internet. It's redundancy after redundancy after redundancy. And I know you're saying, why do we do that? If we already have a data center, in Wyoming, why do we need one in Phoenix? I'm getting to that because the hyperscale data centers need about 48,000 megawatts of electricity per month. That's about 300,000 cubic meters of water per month and at least 100 acres of land. As I said, the new ones don't use water at all. So this is a moot point. And all of the protests that are out there, like, oh, they're going to dry up our lake, they're going to dry up our river. That's not true. That doesn't happen anymore. So that's why most people are upset about it. Now, China, being a third world country or a third major hub as a third world country, they don't care. They build a coal-fired power plant right next to their data center, and they have rivers of water that they can use, and they do. So they use the cheapest way. And if you look at the map and you look at the US, you look at Europe, you look at China, these are where the major data centers are. There are almost none in South America. Africa is almost completely void of them. And the reason is, of course, the population doesn't use computers. They are, in India, for instance, there are 500 million people. That's a big number, 500 million. 500 million people who don't even have a mailing address. No mailing address. They have probably no clear understanding of what a clean glass of water is. They don't do laundry. They don't have sewers. I mean, obviously, data centers are not needed in an area like that. When you have, over 1 billion people with an IQ of less than 65, what are they going to do with the computer? I remember the CEO of, I believe it was Microsoft, or maybe it was Dell. And they had developed this laptop that people could have a personal computer at home. And he went home with a couple of models and asked his mother, which of these computers would you most prefer? This one or this one? And of course, he was in the computer world. They used them, they thought them, they built them, they sold them. That's what the world he was in. And you know what his mother said? Why would anybody need a computer? And then it hit him. Wow, we're not there yet. We don't have a society that has to have a computer in their house. Now we do, but not back then. So there are regions of the country that would say, why in the world would we need a data center? For the same reason that 30 years ago, people were saying, why would you need a computer? Right? So in time, it may come. Although I don't know what you're going to do with an IQ of 65. It's just not going to come ever, I don't think. So there was always this idea. When I was in the Air Force, we talked about this a lot. Do we need one central area that's the brain? You remember the movie iRobot? iRobot, you had this central artificial intelligence that ran all the robots. Now, the robots were the peripherals that people had in their homes to help them cook and help them shop and do the lifting for them and give them baths and all that kind of stuff, right? The robots didn't care. They didn't have any sentience. They didn't mind at all. But the central intelligence, same with Cyberdyne Systems, the central intelligence decided humans were a problem. And so naturally the technology turned on the humans. In both movies, it turned out to be a disaster. So the solution became, so we'd never get to that point where we have this dystopian extermination of humans. By the way, boy dogs do. Good to have you on the program. Woof woof to you. I've been neglecting my chat room. I'm sorry. The argument became, what if we decentralize everything? What if we make the system so redundant in so many different places that nobody could shut it off, right? There's no kill switch to shut off the internet. There's no switch that would shut off all the artificial intelligence and no one would have access to it. And B, if there was an issue, a lightning storm, an earthquake, a fire, a storm, some kind of cyber attack or physical attack, you couldn't take the whole system out. And so that's what they decided to do. A couple of years ago, I was asked to join a team to go down to South Carolina and look at an old textile mill. You know, South Carolina used to be, if you bought yarn in the United States for 75 years, it was made there. They made the yarn. They made, to make jeans and sweaters and everything. Well, those days came and went. Textiles went to Malaysia and India and Vietnam and China, and those plants closed, never to reopen. You can go there to this day, and there are sewing machines all over the place. Office cubicles by the thousands, just sitting there doing nothing. They're obsolete, have been for a long time. But two things about this facility were very attractive to investors, which is why I was called to go down there. The first was the server building. Yeah, it was a building because in those days, servers were enormous. And so you had to have big rooms and you had to have 12-inch walls and they had to have 24-inch, floors so that you could take panels out and run cables. And you know what I'm talking about. You had to have a chiller. You had to have, and what this building had was a gas-fired turbine generator. I think it generated 30 megawatts. Pretty good amount of power. All of that had been closed for forever, for 30 years, at least, maybe 40. But the infrastructure was there. All the cabling, all the hardware, everything was there. And all that really needed to happen was to gut the inside, get rid of all the old racks that held, 19-inch servers, and put in modern data center hardware with all the cabling and refurbish that gas-fired generator. So that's what they did. They ended up buying the building, not for the million square feet of facility that they had there, or the parking, or the access to the highway, just for the data center and the generator. And it was worth it to them because they didn't have to build anything new. Everything was already there. So this was 3 years ago. Now, edge computing places smaller localized data centers close to, and this is why you're seeing data centers in your area, close to the end users. Close to the end users. Why? To reduce the latency. You know, I'm sitting here in Hickory, North Carolina, which is close to Charlotte, North Carolina, which is a huge city, 1.2 million people in the metro. One of the ninth, well, it's the ninth largest metro in the country. Of course it has data needs. Of course it has data needs. Why would Charlotte draw data speeds from Raleigh or from Atlanta? Latency. The data going over the fiber optics in both directions would slow everything down. And the more data intensive the neighborhoods became, the slower the data would go, right? Same as your computer. That's why you don't store a bunch of files on your PC and tie that hard drive up, that digital hard drive that's used to boot the computer up. Next thing you know, you're waiting 2.5 minutes for your computer to boot up. And in these days, that's like, come on, hurry up, right? I mean, 2.5 minutes was nothing 20 years ago, but now it's work time. So the large centralized data centers are still going to handle the massive storage. You still have to have the data local, redundant data local. And it's updated every microsecond. It is updated. AI training, backups, global workloads, while edge sites act as fast, distributed extensions of that core. Instead of shrinking the infrastructure footprint, decentralization creates a layered system. Hyperscale centers at the core, regional centers in the middle, and thousands of micro data centers at the edge. In other words, edge computing doesn't eliminate big data centers, it adds more of them. That's why you're seeing the exponential demand. Got to improve the performance. You have to create resiliency, and you have to expand the overall global data center ecosystem. It is an ecosystem. You can't have it centralized. Well, I suppose you could, but in the, those of you that have been in the military, they used to caution us in the field not to group together. Not 2 or 3, yes. 20 or 30, just standing around smoking cigarettes or talking or drinking beer? No. Why? Because one bomb would get us all. That's why you don't centralize. You decentralize. So from a technical perspective, hold on, mine shots. I know Trump wants to grab land before globalist land grab and divide world into sectors. Trump wants Greenland down to part of South America for America. Smart guy. Not exactly true. What he wants to do, he doesn't want to have all that. He wants to keep all that away from Europe and away from China. He is telling Europe, Norway, Britain, Brussels, keep your hands off the Western Hemisphere. We used to call it, the Monroe Doctrine. Now we call it the Donroe Doctrine. And if you think about the defensive requirements of the population of the United States, the population of the Western Hemisphere, we need to have Greenland to protect the apex of the North Pole, of the Arctic. We don't want missiles coming over the Arctic and landing in the center of America. We don't want that. In order to protect against that, and it's not going to do anything about Pacific launches, but it will do a lot about Arctic launches, we need to have Greenland. And Greenland is cold most all the time and is a great place to put data centers, and I promise you that they are going in there. I don't think Canada is going to be annexed to the United States, but I'll make a prediction. In the next 18 months, you are going to see serious talks. I would say maybe 90 days, you're going to see these talks begin. You're going to see serious talks between Alberta and maybe British Columbia and the United States. Serious talks. The secession votes have already happened. It's serious momentum. This area grows enough wheat to feed half the world, and they are a source of most of the oil in the Northwest. And if we don't get global cooling pushing the wheat belt 300 miles to the south, Alberta is going to be a major player. They don't want to play anymore with Quebec. They don't want to play anymore with Canada. They don't get any benefits from it. They're treated like slaves. They're taxed into oblivion, and they get no benefits from Quebec. So they're seceding. What are they going to do? Form their own country? It's possible, but then you got to take care of your own defense. You got to take care of your own satellite needs. They're not going to be able to do that. They're too small, and they don't have the infrastructure to be able to do that. So what are they going to do? They're going to rely on not Canada. They're going to rely on the United States. And so these conversations between Alberta, probably British Columbia as well, but at least Alberta and the United States are going to really start taking the headlines pretty soon. And it'll be great because we'll have oil pipelines, we'll have wheat pipelines that can go easily across that border without any of the nonsense that you have right now. Of course, the issue is that 100% of the oil in Canada is owned by the government, and that government is in Quebec. So obviously, Alberta is going to say, well, it's not yours. It's not your oil anymore. It's our oil. And that's the crust. That's the crux of the conflict right there. And we'll see how that goes. We'll see how Trump manages to put that out. Yes. Yeah, the welfare of Eastern Canada. Well, there are 10 provinces in Canada, the major ones that you know, and then the ones across the north coast up against the Northwest Passage, which is the body of water between northern Canada and Greenland. They're very remote, not very well vascularized as far as highways or power systems or anything like that. Now, the other thing that AI is going to need, not just space, not just server space, not just power, they're also going to need specialized chips. And this is where it gets particularly interesting. I'm going to be talking about this on Sunday night on Coast to Coast with Richard Surrett, is specialized chips, such as domain-specific accelerators, AI processors, and high-efficiency ARM-based architectures already deliver far better performance per watt than traditional CPUs. And we're getting into the realm of quantum computers. Now, they're small right now, but they're blazingly fast. Not that they can contain that much data, but when connected to data, the quantum computers become basically the heart and soul of the system. There are not many of them. They resemble more a chandelier than they do a computer. And we haven't really got a clear understanding how we're going to use it, because it appears the quantum computers are maybe even making their calculations in another dimension, in another universe. It's just difficult to listen to the designers of it, because when you're dealing with entangled particles and you're flipping the spin of particles as your on and off states for your chip, there are things that happen that are very difficult to understand, very difficult to explain, even to people who know computers. And so sometimes these answers come out. Like, in physics, astrophysics, especially when we do calculations with, say, the Standard Model, there are two answers that we don't like to see. Number one, we don't like to see infinity as an answer, and we don't like to see zero. So we add formulas to the standard model to cancel those things out. We come up with constants that cancel those things out. So the units all line up and we get an answer that makes sense. The same thing is happening in quantum computing, only we're way behind because the limits to which we have pushed quantum computing turn out not to be limits at all. They're so fast and they're so correct. Normally when things get very, very fast, we see entropy, that is to say, sloppiness. We see, it's sort of like your digital camera. When you take a picture with your cell phone camera, it doesn't just take one image. It takes like 1,000 images in that short time that takes you to press your thumb on that. Your camera takes about 1,000 images and it overlays those images one over the other to do what? To eliminate error. And you still have error. There's still lots of error in digital photographs, but it reduces it by creating copies of it and overlaying the copies so that if there's an error in one, it's covered by the error being in a different place in another. And that's why you end up with these megapixel pictures. Well, in computers, the faster you go, and this is even with the best mapping software that we have that creates these blazingly fast chips that we have, these NVIDIAs and others, is there are lots of errors. But with quantum computing, the odd thing is, even though they're hundreds of thousands of times faster than any conventional computer, the errors go down and not up. And that's what kind of leads us to believe that somehow these computers are making calculations in other universes. It isn't subject to entropy. We don't know why. We just know that it's reliable and repeatable. And when we don't know why, we don't really know where to push it. We don't really know how to integrate it with a data center. But trust me, it is coming. So, that being said, you recall the days that, you remember when we had a fiber optic cable boom? Like we learned to send data over fiber optic cables. Well, there was a little thing called Owens Corning. Owens Corning makes the fiber optic cable, the little cable. There's a factory not far from here where they actually draw the fiber out, and that fiber is then bundled, and that's where fiber optic cables come from. So Owens Corning thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. So they built a new plant not far, almost down to Monroe here. And then what happened? The software changed. The software changed that allowed them to compress the data inside the existing fiber optic cables. So the demand for fiber optic cables almost evaporated. Owens Corning almost went out of business because there was no need for additional cable. We had plenty of bandwidth now because they had improved the software and allowed us to compress the light waves inside the existing fiber optic cable, so we didn't need more fiber optic cable. It almost killed the industry. The same thing is going to happen with data centers. Now we're seeing the demand. You're seeing towns of 30,000 people to 50,000 people because the land is cheap, getting permit applications to build data centers. But what happens if the computing speed goes up by a factor of 100,000? Well, the need for the data centers goes down. So that's a stress that the investors haven't seen on the market yet, but they're going to. Even with these improvements, the industry faces a fundamental limit. Moore's law is slowing down, meaning transistor density and the efficiency are no longer doubling at the pace they once did. Chips are they're getting faster, but they're not getting huge leaps in speed. I don't know if those of you remember the 286. You remember when the 286 came out? Oh man, we thought we were in heaven. We had green screen, word processing programs. We had spreadsheet programs. This is before the days of Excel. We had things like Harvard Graphics and things like that. We thought we were in heaven. And then, oh my God, the 386 came out. We had an office, we probably had 12 286s in it. We got one 386. And that 386 was so much faster than the 286s. Nobody wanted to use the old computers. They all wanted to use the new one. And then I changed companies. I went to someplace else, and we were doing a lot of graphics. We were doing a lot of SAP work, and we had 486s with 66 megahertz clock speeds. Oh my gosh. I go back with computers way back to 1967. We had 2-inch tape. It was this wide, magnetic tape, and it went on reel to reels, these big blue and gray cabinets. And they were Canon computers. And I remember I was at the University of California, Irvine. I was taking a course in genetics. I know, 1967 is a long time ago. Yes. What shocked you when I was 12? I was 12, and I was taking a course in genetics at UCI. And the Canon rep came and upgraded the RAM in our computers. And he upgraded it to 8K of RAM, 8K. And I remember the rep, as he was closing up, he said, "We've just upgraded your computers to 8K. That means this computer can make 8,000 computations a second. Nobody will ever need more than 8K of RAM." Where are we now? Oh my gosh. My computer right here has 8 gig of RAM. 8 gig. And RAM is expensive these days, right? But it's not fast enough. I could use more RAM, to tell you the truth. But it was crazy where we were then and where we are now. Quantum computing is way past that. But we're not ready for that. There's nobody actually, you can't go to Dell and buy a quantum computer. That's not available yet. The speed at which the chips become more efficient can't keep up with the explosive growth in demand for AI and the cloud services and the digital infrastructure. These efficiency gains may temper the expansion rate, but I will tell you right now, it is not going to reverse it. We're not going to say at some point, we will never need more than 8K of RAM. We just won't say that. We're going to say we want it faster. So where's it going to go? Well, it could go to Antarctica. Wonderful, great. It can stay cool. You got plenty of energy. You could put a generator down there of any size, a nuclear jet reactor. But look where it is. Is it local to you? No. Are you going to have latency between Antarctica and Pittsburgh? Yes. That's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. That's why the data centers have to be pretty close to your backyard. Now, about 1.9 miles from here is the new Microsoft data center. You can see it, right? If you just look out my side door right here, over the trees there is where the data center is going in. For about 9 months, they have been digging a ditch across Zion Church Road and down across Highway 10. They just crossed Highway 10, and they're laying fiber optic cable, and they're laying water lines, 8-inch water lines, like this big. You know how much water can go through 8 inches? A lot of water, like a town of water. All that's going to Microsoft right down there. So are my latency issues going to be big? No. My little carriage house right here should have blazingly fast internet all the time and blazingly fast connectivity to the web. And we'll see how it goes, but that same thing's trying to happen in your neighborhood. And I don't know what the quantum computers need. I know that they need superconductive wire. And that wire has to be at a temperature of at least 180 degrees below zero, probably closer to 200 because, and this is Fahrenheit, of course, not Kelvin, because the data doesn't go through the wire, it goes over the wire. It goes over the p orbitals of the wire. And that's what makes it very, very fast with no resistance. Your power requirements go way, way down. So as you can see, the specialized infrastructure that it's going to take to make these things go faster is going to be challenging. There's also, and Stanley or Distant Sight brings this up, there's also the possibility of putting data centers in space. Now, if you go to space, orbiting data centers, here are the challenges. Well, there are three main challenges. The first one is infrastructure. First of all, you got to lift a couple 100,000 pounds into space, maybe 1 million pounds into space, and you have to construct it. There's an expense to that. Second of all, it has to be probably in fairly high Earth orbit, either 500 miles or 23,500 miles, depending on if you want it to be geosynchronous or orbiting. Okay, that's high Earth orbit is about 500 miles, and geosynchronous is 23,500 miles. So obviously, you're going to have to get the data from Earth to that and back from that to Earth. And it has to go to a distribution point or several distribution points from that point in space. So it means you're going to have laser beams. And I will tell you, laser beams, once they get out 23,500 miles, they get fatter and fatter and fatter. Like a laser beam, you can have a nice tight beam, maybe 1/8 of an inch in diameter at the source, which is a pretty good sized laser beam. But by the time it gets out there to space, it's going to be about 36 inches across. So you have to have something that collects that data stream calling up to that data center. And then you got to beam it right back down to Earth. So you have to have a way to get that data through our atmosphere without anything running in its way to the receiver here on Earth and then distribute that. So that's the first thing, is the actual infrastructure. The second thing is going to be the cooling. Now, you might say, well, gee, it's really cold in space. They should have no trouble cooling that server. But coolness relies on mass transfer. If you're in a vacuum, the mass transfers in all one direction. So you're generating heat. The heat is radiating out into space, and that loss of heat is your cooling system. The issue is it's pretty slow. It's pretty slow because of the photons that have to leave the metal or the structure that you have in space. It's faster if you can have some kind of mass to pass across that vein or that chip or that wire in order to draw the energy away. And that mass can be at somewhere around 20 or 25 degrees Kelvin. You're going to get great mass transfer. But it's sort of like having a hot cup of coffee. I think I explained this to you on Sunday. If you have a hot cup of coffee, it's just come out of the brewer, and you put it up to your mouth, your face, your lips are going to detect, hey, there's a lot of heat coming off this. I better not just, suck this into my face, or I'm not going to be able to taste anything for a week. So what do? You blow across the coffee, right? You blow across the coffee. The mass transfer is happening from the relatively cool air coming from your mouth, striking the surface of the coffee, absorbing heat out of that coffee, and taking it away into the room. If you had a thermometer on the other side of that coffee, when you blew, you'd see the temperature rise. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. I'll explain more, and it's going to be a much more clear understanding of what's going on. All right, we'll be right back after this.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Tune in to the Family Industrial Complex podcast here on Revolution Radio, Studio B, every Wednesday, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Get fit, empowered, physically, mentally, and spiritually.
The rooster has crowed out the opening bars of a new day. You've dragged yourself out of bed. You turn on your device. You want to know what's going on in the world. But you're hungry for a topical show that serves up those breakfast headlines just that little bit differently. Do you like your early morning news the way you like your eggs over easy? Served with slathers of salsa-like sass? Do you like those first headlines of the day to deliver a punch as powerful as that first cup of joe? Join Mitchell Bupp at his breakfast table for Revolution in the Morning, where he will digest, dissect, and dismantle those new day's national and global news headlines with razor-sharp relish. Find Mitchell here at revolution.radio every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on Studio B.
Through everything, we have to remember that we have more in common than not in common. And to find this common ground, tune in to Conversations with Eagle Flower, Wednesdays, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio A. Because we come to this table of life to learn in the best possible way and experience this gift of life from our mutual creator. So let's learn together and build our best future with Conversations with Eagle Flower, Wednesdays, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Studio A on Revolution Radio.
I will defend myself against their tyranny. Number 3 is my radio broadcast. I'm squarely in front of the public all the time, and they all know what's going on.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence.
Hello, my name is John Wayne, and I do a broadcast here at freedomslips.com, revolution.radio, called The Unequivocal Truth, DEFCON 1.
Freedom and fear are at war.
And folks, I assure you, we are in Defense Condition 1, as we journey perilously through this paradigm that we currently reside in. And I ask that you join me every Saturday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for The Unequivocal Truth, DEFCON 1.
We shall never surrender.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at higher risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Thanks for hanging in there while we took that short break. Now back to America Free Radio with host Brooks Agnew here at Revolution Radio.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Revolution Radio. We love your listeners. Going out through TalkStream Live and iHeartRadio and TuneIn Radio and Orange Radio, all the different apps that are out there. People listen to us while they're driving, while they're working on their favorite projects. And it's you, the listener out there, that we truly love, and we would be nowhere without you. Difficult to measure, but we know you're out there because I see your mail. You mail me. You thank me for my words and my perspectives, and I appreciate that very much. I might talk about that, Cromwell. It's a little bit off subject, but I might talk about it. I want to have you pay attention because we're going to go visit my website, which is brooksagnew.com. We have to do this because my boss tells me I have to do it. And if you go to my website, brooksagnew.com, you know you're going to be at the right place because it'll say, I'm Brooks Agnew. There's my picture. It doesn't get any clearer than that. On the cover, there's just two blue buttons that you need to worry about. One is get my free newsletter. About 10,000 of you get it. I appreciate you more than you know. I send it out every Wednesday, every Sunday. Most of you delete it. Some people click on it. You listen to tonight's program. You share it with your friends. There are other links on there for stuff that you need. And one of the links right here is when you go to this webpage inside of my site, which is, oh, don't tell me we've been. Yeah, there we go again. How about that? That's what happens when we get those pop-ups. It disables my buttons on my website. All right, no problem. We're just going to go up here and type in a code, just a little bit, and then we can go to the page. So once you get to the page, it's called Health and Safety. Easy to do. Once you click that button, you will find products like ivermectin and fenbendazole and mebendazole and hydroxychloroquine. Now, some of these products, like hydroxychloroquine and fenbendazole, we can send to you tonight. If you order tonight, you'll have it by Friday, probably. That's how fast it gets out of our warehouse. Mebendazole, we're still waiting on. We have about, we have 3 or 4 months worth of this stuck in New York in U.S. Customs. We're trying to get it through. They're very slow. Once it starts getting through, our warehouse will be stocked and we'll be able to get it out in 4 days as well. Ivermectin is a little bit different story. We have enormous demand for this product. We have, I don't know how much, maybe 28 cases of this stuck in New York. As I said, we just got cases in this week that we ordered in January. It's freaking June, for crying out loud. It's not always going to be that way. The stuff we ordered 12 days ago already came and we shipped it out. So we know what we have to do. We just have to spend more money and get more stuff in and just wait on U.S. Customs to do their job. But if you order it, we will send it to you. And if you write to me, that'll just make it that much faster. And you know what these products do. I don't have to tell you what they do. You know why you want them. You just don't know where to get them, but now you do. And you don't need a prescription, okay? Go to the website, hit the buy now button. The rest is so self-explanatory, easier than Amazon. And don't forget about your True Niagen. This is the #1 product in the world for making your body make NAD again. Nicotinamide riboside is the complex that your body used to make in great supply until you were about 45 years old. Then it slowed way down. When that happened, your metabolism slowed down. You started putting on weight. You got wrinkles. You started forgetting where your keys are, that kind of stuff. It's because NAD provides the mitochondria, your body's ability to stock mitochondria in your muscles. And this is what metabolizes the ATP in your system, which gives you the energy and helps you heal and do all that kind of stuff. It also keeps your telomeres long on your chromosomes. When your telomeres begin burning down, they get to a certain point, you die. Why? Because you're dying of old age, which is called malnutrition. Nothing you eat is getting to your body because your chromosomes are old. NAD doesn't make you feel younger. Well, it does. It makes you younger. Okay, I've been taking this for 8 years and I've not aged in 8 years. Maybe I'm not as flexible as I used to be, but I'm doing everything and look just the way I did 8 years ago. That's what you want, and here is how you get it. Don't forget about your zinc, magnesium, and vitamin B complex. I take Zima. This is what the athletes take. I take 1 tablet every single day. It's about 1,000 milligrams. Believe me, it's the number one source athletes use. Everybody swears by it. Most of the physicians know exactly what it is. Insulus, that's a product you're not going to find anywhere else. I happen to know the woman who invented it. It is patented. Insulus reduces your insulin resistance. That's why it's called Insuless. I put a few drops under my tongue 2 or 3 times a day, and it knocks my A1C numbers down by letting my body use the insulin I already make. I make plenty of insulin. My number's right in the middle of the spec. But my body is insulin resistant. I don't use the insulin the way it's supposed to be. So I take the Insulus and everything pans out. And don't forget about the fluoride-free toothpaste. I know you hear me say this all the time, but you're still buying the stuff from the grocery store. I can tell because I'm not making any commissions off the toothpaste. I should be selling 10,000 tubes of this a month, or at least every 90 days, because it's about a 90-day supply in these 2 tubes. But I'm not, because you're not doing it. You're still buying Crest and Aquafresh and Colgate, and you're still putting fluoride in your body and turning your pineal gland into a piece of concrete. Okay? Enough said. Let's get back to it, because we have stuff we got to talk about. We were talking about artificial intelligence, and we were specifically talking about the data centers that are popping up all over the place. You're seeing them in your neighborhood. I'm seeing them in mine. Some people are saying, not in my backyard. I don't want a data center here. Well, you guys are barking up the wrong tree, because they don't use water anymore, not a gallon, and they provide their own energy. Now, I'd like to see them not provide the energy with diesel generators. That's noisy and polluting, and it's just dumb, because those 16-cylinder diesel engines are eventually going to wear out and have to be rebuilt. It's just dumb. Put in a gas-fired turbine. You got gas lines all over the place. Or put in a small nuclear power plant and kick some of the energy back to your local grid. That's the way it's going to have to be. So, of course, there's irony in all of this data center artificial intelligence. And that is, we built a system that promises, infinite digital capacity. But it also has almost a limitless appetite, right? Training large models is massively energy intensive. You remember when ChatGPT came along? How many of you used it? I mean, I tried it. It was basically a college sophomore, maybe. Made a lot of mistakes, even simple stuff that I had it write or had it edit. It was opinionated and gave me false data, gave me made up data that didn't exist. I didn't really care for it. I gave it a C, maybe a C minus. And then ChatGPT 2 came along. It was a little bit better. We could use it to write music. Yes, you could have a design a website in about 3 minutes, but the website that was just the beginning. You still had to create all the links and the pages and the menu, and it was worthless. Worthless. I could just buy DIV software and build it myself in a fraction of the time and be done with it, right? ChatGPT 2 was not working. It didn't finish the job. It just made more work for everybody. And then ChatGPT 3 came along, and then Grok came along, right? So now just ChatGPT 3, and now it's not free anymore. You have to subscribe. You have to pay so much a month. And how many of you are doing that? I'm not. Nobody is. It's suffering. It's suffering big time. It uses 1,287 megawatt hours, which is about enough to run 130, 140 homes. And that's just in a year. Newer techniques like DeepSeek's claim up to 90% energy savings, showing progress, but not yet the norm. Each AI leap, and they're coming faster and faster now, demands more computer, more cooling, and more physical space. AI doesn't live in the cloud. Okay, there's no such thing. It doesn't live in the cloud. It lives in data centers. And if that data center is 1,000 miles away from you, there's all kinds of latency. There are errors that occur. There are switching problems that occur. And sometimes you might not even be able to connect because there are too many people connected. You know what that's like? Yes, you do. You've already experienced it, haven't you? It lives in data centers, and the data centers have to be local. Until we figure out a way to make the speeds or to somehow localize everything, like, I don't know, by location or computing in another dimension like quantum computers do, then you're going to have these latency problems, and the data center has to be close by. As for whether tiny, ultra-efficient models can reduce the need for data centers, no. We're just not there yet. We're not there yet. We don't have chips fast enough. We don't have RAM. We don't have hard drives. These data centers are not idiosyncratic. That is to say, they don't have a piece of the data, and then another data center has another piece of the data, and another data center has another piece of the data. They're redundant. Okay, we're talking about decentralized internet, basically. As I already told you, there are many benefits to that. One is it can't be shut down. It can't be stopped. If one port doesn't work, you go to another port. It's all automatic. And it's more reliable and less apt to take over everything and rule. Only 10 to 20% of data center capacity is tied to artificial intelligence. The rest powers everything, all your enterprise systems, your storage, your streaming, your movies. How many of you have been watching Netflix or watching Amazon or watching Hulu or something, and I had a movie buffer on you? It stops for a while, and then it spins and buffers. Well, I haven't had that in a while, have you? Have you? No. It doesn't matter when you want to watch that movie. It's always available, even if there are 50,000 people watching that movie. Like, did you watch, the most popular movies when they came out? Did you watch them? I mean, they had like 10 million streams in 3 days. Did you have any buffering? No. Why? Because the data centers are redundant. That's why. And it doesn't matter how fast your internet is. If too many people are watching, too many people are watching if you have one data center, but you don't, you have lots. So only 10 to 20% is artificial intelligence. Now the rest is just pure horsepower to run your internet life, whether you're streaming on your phone, your tablet, your smart TV, or your PC that's wired to your cable. AI spreads across every industry: healthcare, aviation, energy, education, traffic management, law enforcement. AI is spreading, and it is needed to make those things efficient and possible. And that share is going to rise from 10 to 20% to maybe 50 to 70%. That doesn't mean that everything else is going to drop. That's in addition to everything that we're already doing with the internet, everything we're already doing with network connectivity. The surge in data center construction over the past few years is often attributed to the rise of artificial intelligence. But the reality is, it's more nuanced than that. It's more nuanced than that. Hyperscale expansion has been underway for, 2026? 10 years. 10 years since Trump was elected in 2016. And you just need to go back just a little bit and you'll see what I'm talking about. If you go back to 2011, that's just 5 years before that. Go back to 2011. What kind of cell phone did you have? 2006, 2007, 8, 9, 10. What kind of cell phone did you have? Did you have a Razr, the Motorola? Did you have the BlackBerry? That was the shit back in its day, right? I mean, it was great. You could text, you could make phone calls, you couldn't take pictures, but you could do everything else. But what happened in 2011? That's right. What happened in 2011 was the smartphone. The first smartphone came out, right? In 2012, I upgraded. I got rid of my Blackberries for the company, and I got iPhones. And man, the whole world changed. Man, you could do video, you could do we didn't have FaceTime yet, but we had everything else. You could watch your news, you could watch TV, you could do everything on the phone. And people's lives began to change, and politics began to change. Hillary Clinton thought we were still living in the world when Barack Obama was president, right? And when he was president in 2008, 2012, coming up on 2016, that's the way politics ran. You watch TV, you watch Fox News, you watch CNN. That's how everybody got their news. And what were they saying? Oh, Hillary Clinton has a 98% chance of winning. Everybody knew it. But the people with smartphones weren't getting their news from TV. They were getting their news on their phones. They were, in those days, it was Drudge Report. It was the early days of Breitbart, Newsmax, WorldNet Daily, Zero Hedge. We had some obscure ones out there too, but that's how people were getting their news. And what happened was people learned about Trump, and they were following Trump. And what happened was a big surprise. When 2016 rolled around in November and the elections took place, everybody went to the polls and voted, and Hillary Clinton's team was overwhelmed. They said, what the hell are you talking about? Donald Trump won. We had a 98% chance of winning. He's nothing. Well, he was really something in the smartphone world. Of course, then the Democrats shifted gears, and by 2018, they were able to take everything back. But the point is, that's what's happening with the data centers. The data centers are like the smartphones compared to the old Blackberries. Local access, higher speeds, and you get all the benefits from it. And you don't have to be a farmer with 10,000 acres that you have to plant and fertilize and combine, and you have these GPS controlled tractors that do everything for you, rather than you have to, drop a stake in the ground to remember when you come back around your 10,000 acre field, you need to step over 8 feet so you don't, run over the same stuff twice. GPS does all that for you. You're not a farmer. You're not a factory. You don't have to keep track of inventory and hours and energy and be able to break down everything in your engineering resource management program to calculate your costs down to cost per part. You're just an ordinary person. You just want to watch TV. You just want to pick up your phone, type in a few things, or go on your PC or your tablet or your laptop and order groceries. You just want to order socks for your baby, or something, diapers or whatever. All that takes data. The key question is, and this is where this becomes controversial in all the city council meetings across the country, how much of today's construction boom represents genuine AI-driven demands versus just the continuation of an existing trajectory in which cloud providers continually expand capacity to stay ahead of the future workloads? You know the answer to that? Well, if you look at the data center trends, along around January of 23, this is when ChatGPT first came on the scene. Nobody really knew what to do with it. Some people did, some people didn't. But that kind of started the hockey stick. That's where the data center demand happened. And then it was only a matter of, investors getting wind of that. Sort of like in late 23, when I went down to South Carolina and looked at that plant. Those investors knew what they were buying. They knew why they were buying it. They knew what the return on their investment would be. And that's why we went down there and reviewed the facility and made the decision with them. So other investors know the same thing. And yes, in the early days, it was messy. You had to have water. You had to have diesel generators. Those generators are expensive, and they're hard to get, and they're hard to maintain, and they break down all the time. So the newer ones don't use any water at all. They don't use a gallon of water, and they generate their own electricity, and they share the electricity with the local grid. So they're actually a benefit to their communities. And you don't need to listen to the old way. Google's lying to you. Google is just blowing smoke up your ass. That's why you're afraid of it. That's why your community is afraid of it. If somebody's coming into your area and they need a river or they need a lake to put their data center in, you're dealing with the wrong people. You're dealing with people who don't understand how to build one and don't understand the value of what they're building. They're trying to do it on the cheap. Of course, what will happen is they'll run out of water, they'll run out of energy, and then they got to upgrade. And then there you are. You're back to the same old story where you have to have a local bond issue in order to save your data center. Today, just today, there are over 1,100 hyperscale facilities worldwide, with the United States hosting more than half of them. And that number continues to grow every single year as the major providers expand their footprints. And it's only going to get bigger, people. You're not going to get to the point where you can live without it. What's emerging now is a strategic question. Here's the question. How much of this rapid expansion is driven by the actual near-term demand, and how much is motivated by competition, market positioning, and the fear of being left without capacity when the next big surge arrives? That's kind of the way President Trump is talking right now. We don't want China to pass us up. We don't want Russia or Europe or South America to pass us up. We want to lead the world in artificial intelligence. And in order for that to happen, you have to have the data centers, and they have to be local to the users. It's not just the artificial intelligence for the Defense Department. It's not just the artificial intelligence for, major industry in Detroit or in Atlanta or in New York or California. It's you. It's getting the information to and from you. Cloud providers are racing to secure land and power and racks in anticipation of future workloads. It's not because the population is going to go up that high. It's not. It's your requirements are going to change. I have almost a gig of speed here. I have about 800 meg. Do I use it? No, I don't use it, but I might. My kids might. That's the thing. We were really excited about 1 meg speeds back in 1996. You remember that? Remember when cable modems came along and we went from, 19K or 56K? You remember the movie Hackers? Angelina Jolie. Remember that movie, Hackers? Oh, they were boasting about 56K modems in that movie. 56K, dial-up. Wow. And then when 1 meg came along, we thought the world was everything. We used to use as an engineer, we buy parts to build stuff, assembly lines, robots, whatever. And Thomas Register was a volume set, a 24 volume set of books that listed every manufacturer of everything from gaskets to plastic housings in alphabetical order. And we had it on our shelf. And my God, we had Post-it notes sticking out all through that set of volumes because we bought stuff all the time. Poly chain belts and displays and vibration absorbing feet and bearings and all that stuff. All that stuff was made by American manufacturers, and that's what we bought of it. There's Thomas Register. When the internet got fast in 1996, over 5,000 of those companies in that 24 volume set, 5,000 of those companies every single day was establishing a website, a web portal for their company. Do you remember something called, I don't know, you might not remember. Some of you may. Something called the Yellow Pages. Anybody remember the Yellow Pages? You remember phone books. I know. Wow. Woo. And if the bigger the city you lived in, the bigger the phone book was. The phone book listed everybody in every business in alphabetical order, depending on how much you spent on your ad, how big that page was, and their phone numbers and their addresses. And so you went to the phone book to look stuff up, to look companies up, to find them, to call them, to buy stuff from them. Well, that became obsolete. By 1998, phone books were obsolete. You remember having to pay for long distance on your cell phone. You remember that? 10 cents a minute, 25. Remember that? You paid so much. I paid $4,000 a month sometimes on my cell phone because I was in business. I had to do stuff. $4,000 a month. Many of you don't even remember what long distance was because we haven't had it in so long. That's what happened when the internet came along. That's what happened. The Thomas Register went completely online, and it was way better because I put in bearing, and it lists all the companies that make bearings right there. The close ones to me, the furthest ones from me, the ones that could make the bearings I was looking for, all right there. And all I have to do is have Thomas Register send them an email for me. That's all data driven. Did I become more sophisticated? No. But I'll tell you, I became 1,000 times more productive with it. And so do you. Cloud providers are racing to secure this land to make that stuff happen for the future need. And really, no one knows what that is. Everybody, even Wall Street is saying, what is coming next? What do we do now? What's the next big thing? Where do I position myself? How do I invest my money? Because they're not going to see a return for 2-3 years. That Microsoft Center's been building since I started building this house 3 years ago. I'm done with it. Now I'm living in my house, but are they done with that, living in that? No, not done yet. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of forward looking. A lot. Yeah, Cromwell says he was a beta tester for Rogers Wave. I don't even know what that is. I felt like I was tapping into the Matrix. It was so fast. Whatever. Yeah, that's exactly right. Data centers have become the silent architecture beneath every single digital workflow. Everything. Their rapid global expansion isn't the product of a single force, but it's the accumulation of decades of digitization, cloud adoption, mobile computing, mobile phones, streaming, enterprise SaaS systems, SAP, all kinds of inventory control systems. Everything has AI now. And what AI has done is compress the timeline. And that accelerates the demand for high density computations and pushing providers to build capacity faster than ever. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to demand even more. The movies that we watch, no, we don't see that little spinning circle anymore because nothing is delayed. I can watch a movie along with 500,000 other people and it doesn't delay at all. But we're going to want more. Even if today's surge proves to be a partial bubble, and it could be, it is driven by competition, the land values, it's of course driven by investors pushing it, wanting to get in and get out at all different levels. The land speculators, the equipment speculators, the commercial equipment sellers, everybody wants to get in on it. The underlying demand for storage, connectivity, global digital services, it continues to go up every single year. And that's not because of the hype cycles. It's actually happening. Look at what happened to malls. Now, we still have a vibrant mall not far from us. We have multiple. It's a big draw. We have restaurants and all kinds of services in that mall. Are there empty spaces in that mall? Yeah, not many, but yeah. Why? Because people are out of their cars. They're out of their cars and they're walking down the aisles and they're impulse buying all the way. Chocolate and beef jerky and tennis shoes and just, do people go to the mall for a specific thing? Yeah, they do, but they end up buying other things. They have lunch, they watch a movie, they, check out Rue and New York and all the different sellers in the mall. They check them all out. And whether current build-outs are fully justified or partly anticipatory, one reality remains. And you can't back away from this, grandma or grandchild. The world is not moving toward fewer data centers. Not happening. It's moving toward more. We need the data, and we need the data close to us. It's moving toward more in a layered system of hyperscale, regional, and edge facilities. The challenge ahead isn't deciding whether to build them, but ensuring that infrastructure we create today isn't obsolete tomorrow. It's not obsolete inventory. It's flexible. It's efficient. It's ready to support the next decade of digital acceleration. And despite their prevalence and importance to daily life, data centers remain largely misunderstood. People are afraid of them, just like they were oil refineries, like they were nuclear power plants. They're afraid of them. And I think this is, it's a product of the rapid proliferation of data centers. It's some of the social media out there saying, I hate the generators. They're running all the time. I can't even go out on my porch without hearing it. You hear all the negative press about it. And you see all these city council meetings where all these old farts are going in there saying, we don't need no damn data center around here. Y'all keep that shit out of here. You see it every day. You see it. And you understand that the investors, the people that are putting up the hundreds of millions of dollars to make this happen, how frustrated they are in meetings like that, where the people say, you're going to dry our damn lake up. No, we're not. We don't use any water. That's old technology. We don't use any water anymore. Well, you're going to make our electricity bills go up. No, we're not. In fact, we're going to provide electricity to your grid and help your power company not have to build another nuclear power plant or build another solar farm in your area, because we're going to generate our own electricity, and the surplus electricity is going to go to the grid. We're not even going to draw energy from the grid. This is the argument that's out there. This is the challenge that's out there. And, back in 2010, 2011, 2012, when smartphones came on, it changed the face of politics. That's the same change we're talking about here. Data centers will change the face of how information moves. And we are in an information age. And the more costly, the more control there is over information, the more expensive your life is going to be. Companies started using the cloud as soon as it became available. Trust me, they didn't want to have huge data centers in their store or in their factory. They uploaded everything to the cloud. Everything was secure. Everything was available to all the stores, all the manufacturing locations they have around the world at the same time. That's how valuable it was. So here's the sense that one morning, everybody's going to wake up and data centers are going to be a part of your life. You're going to be local. They may not take up 40,000 acres like the one that's planned in Utah. I thought that was a little excessive myself, but certainly 300 or 400 acres for the entire facility, parking for the employees, places for expansion so they don't get landlocked and have to buy another piece of property and root up everything. Like, I remember when Walmarts were everywhere. They were in every town from 13,000 people up. You remember that? You remember? And then the only thing more plentiful than a Walmart building was an old Walmart building. Why? Because the Walmart model became so successful that they had to build a super Walmart. And then it went to 24 hours a day. And they had a florist, and they had a pharmacy, and they had an auto shop, and they had a deli, and they had a butcher. Everything was inside Walmart, and everything was thriving. Everything was making money. The electronics, the kitchenware, the pharmacy, everything was making money inside the Walmart. And so they had to leave the old Walmart building, which had the big blue front with the shadow of the Walmart sign on the front of it. You remember that? It just became vacant. Why? Because they built the bigger one. They built a bigger one 5 or 6 miles away. And where did everybody go? To that Walmart. That model became successful. And Kmart went away, and all your local groceries or your local stores that used to sell lawnmowers and bicycles and all that went away. And it all went to Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, stuff like that. Same thing's going to happen with the data centers. Stories started to emerge about data center power consumption, including whether data centers may increase utility bills. As I said, some of these city council meetings out there are quite humorous. And of course, there's the NIMBY, which is not in my backyard. Sentiment started to take root. And as a result, local jurisdictions began opposing new data center developments. We're proud of ourselves. We're not going to have no data center anywhere close to here. And guess what else is not going to be close to you? Someplace to work. There are not going to be any factories close to you. There's not going to be any distribution centers close to you. There's not going to be any routing centers close to you. You see what I'm saying? That's all going to go where the data center is. All that is going to go where the data center is. And so don't be like AOC, where you're going to say, we ain't going to have no Amazon sorting or delivery station or warehouse in our neighborhood. Hell no. Get the hell out of here. Well, there's 25,000 jobs gone just like that. Did she get reelected? Yes, she did. Why? Well, proof positive sexual favors will go a long way in politics. And AOC has a plethora of them. Well, not so much anymore because that ass is getting about that big. So I don't think that's going to go for her much longer. No, you can't make it in politics on a face, just a face. You got to have the ass to go with it. And she does not anymore. People complain about the data centers without really knowing what they are, what they do, and what they can draw to your community. When your kids or your grandkids graduate high school and you say, how come you're moving away? Because I want a job, Grandma. I want a job. I want to go to college. Where are the colleges? Close to the data centers. Where are the factories? Where are the jobs? Where are the distribution centers? Where are the R&D facilities? Close to the data center. You see what you're doing? You should embrace the data centers and you should demand excellence. You can bring your data center in here, but you're going to make your own energy and you're not going to use any of our water. And you better be quiet over here. Why don't you do that and see what you get? Now, to be fair, in the early days of the data center construction, I will be honest, the industry focused largely on function and they didn't really care about aesthetics. They don't want to do any landscaping. I mean, some of these places look like a Klingon nightclub, right? It's kind of like Barack Obama's, museum. It looks like a Klingon nightclub. Absolutely. It could be a Klingon nightclub in a movie. All you have to do is just change the surroundings a little bit. And I would say the early data centers kind of look like that. They were ugly and they were noisy and they used a lot of water. If you drive through Northern Virginia, you're going to see these huge concrete buildings, ugly as shit. And that is now changing. The data center providers are doing more to integrate themselves into the communities in which they operate by ensuring the designs are beautiful, they're attractive, they're functional. You drive by them and you go, wow, that's really a cool looking building. And They're getting better. They're getting better. Also, data centers don't pollute the air. Not the old ones did, and that was a problem in the beginning because I said of the diesel generators. But many of the sites now are incredible. They're incredible. Beautiful lakes by them with birds and nature areas, and because they want to preserve all that. The data centers, by comparison, are clean. The misconceptions come down from the presence of the diesel generators, but these generators are only used in case of emergency. They're not fired up every single day. They're fired up like once a month. Hell, I went down to the mall next to the hospital one day, and they were running the generator at the mall, the emergency generator, which is one of these big, like 12-cylinder diesel generators. And they were running it. And I said, wow, why are they doing this? Is the power out in the mall? No, they're just testing it. They run it for about an hour, make sure everything's working in it, and then they shut it back off again. Do the neighbors complain about that? No. Prior to shifting the IT load to the data centers, a lot of businesses, and I worked in many of them, I worked in numerous Fortune 100 companies, and we had our own servers. We had our own servers, and we had to pay for the air conditioning. We had Halon fire systems, and we had to have it because that's where the orders came in, right? That's how we communicated with GM, with Toyota in Japan. Everything was done on our internal server in our own building. It was way bad efficiency. We had to have it worked on all the time. It wasn't a reliable environment. It made a lot of heat. We had to get that heat out of the room. Of course, we had to use extra room in the area. I could have used that room for a dozen different things, but no, it had to be filled with computers. Data centers have allowed businesses to operate their IT equipment as efficiently as possible compared to other alternatives. In 2005, when I went down to Dallas to save the GM plant, I know that sounds like a big talk, but it was. We were not going to have Suburbans anymore. We were done with them. Why? Because we couldn't make any money on them. Why couldn't we make any money on them? Well, that's what they wanted to know, and that's why they sent me to Dallas. So I went down there, and the issue was their recontainerization system. We call it recon. Stuff comes in on a train. It comes in like, 20,000 green appliques and 20,000 gray carpet pads. You know what I'm talking about. Big train loads of them. Well, you can't take those trains to the manufacturing plant because they don't make all gray cars. They don't make all green cars. The Suburbans were coming out in 6 different colors. You had to have those 6 different colors distributed at the plant, at the place where they were going to be used. Mirrors and carpet and glove compartment doors, everything had to match the car that was coming up next. And you didn't have a line of green cars. You had a gray one and a black one and a white one and a red one. So naturally, those parts had to be in order. That's the recon plant. Well, the recon plant was not functioning. You know how it was distributing its data? You're not going to believe me when I tell you. This is 2005 now. Vacuum tubes. Yeah, like the old factories at the turn of the century. You roll up your plant and you stand it in the vacuum tube and it goes out through the river and it ends up over at the packing station. And they open it up and they go, oh, 4-wheel drive transmission, no problem. And they put that transmission together and send it to the line, right? That's how they were distributing data. So it was inflexible. It couldn't move. It couldn't grow. Everything was on top of everything else. And guess what they had running all over the plant, 40 miles an hour, every different direction? Forklifts, hundreds and hundreds of forklifts, bringing the recon stuff from the trains to the line, from the trains to the line. It was insane. And so they said, we're going to close this plant. I said, no. Don't do that. Don't do that. Let me rent another facility. So 2 miles away, I rented another facility, 500,000 square feet, and it was expandable to 1 million. No vacuum tubes. We put antennas up in the ceiling, and we went to wireless printers at the individual build stations. We did completely away with the propane-powered forklifts, and we delivered the parts directly to the work cell. So we had a Kanban of parts at the work cell. And we were able to receive the prints right there at the cell with no vacuum tubes. Isn't that kind of crazy? From the plant 8 miles away. Yeah, 8 miles away. And every 28 minutes, a truck left that dock. And we had 61 docks. Every 28 minutes, trucks left and went to the factory. And their inventory at the factory went from about 5.5 hours to about an hour and a half. We only had an hour and a half of inventory in the plant, and everything was color matched by the paint plant's information that came out the day before. That's how much lead time we had to put that together. Every 28 minutes we shipped. And we kept them in an hour and a half's inventory. And that's why you can buy a Suburban to this day, because it was going out of production in 2006. It wasn't going to happen. And guess what? We went from 6 colors to 16 colors. 16 colors of Suburbans. And we were able to handle all of that. Why? Because we decentralized the data distribution in the plant. That was my creation, and that's what saved the Chevy Suburban. Not kidding, real, true facts. That was 2005. Here we are, 2026, and we have now the ability to pull all that manufacturing back to the United States. We don't have to let it go anymore because now we can make the data centers close to where they're needed. And we can go back to manufacturing, back to making furniture, back to making fabric, back to making automobiles and TVs. Hell, John Deere said they're bringing 2 plants from China back to the US. Why? Because it's cheaper. Imagine that. The data centers are now so close to the plant that they can manage the construction of excavators. We haven't made an excavator in this country in 30 years. And it's because of these data centers. It's also important to note that the data centers yield an array of positive economic impacts, not for the world, just the local community, yours. The data centers create high-paying jobs, $80,000, $90,000, $100,000, $120,000 a year jobs. When a company qualified for the sales and use tax incentive in Virginia, we were able to demonstrate that we created 50 net new jobs that paid 50% above the median salary for Fairfax County. Fairfax was one of the highest median incomes in the country, and we still met that threshold. Importantly, the jobs we create don't always require a college degree. In fact, colleges don't teach this stuff. They're already obsolete, as I've been saying since 1996. Institutional education is obsolete. The data centers provide employees from different training and educational backgrounds with great career paths and development opportunities. They fund scholarships at local colleges and host interns to support education pathways for these jobs. And in addition to the direct jobs, remember there are indirect jobs too, we're in constant construction mode with crews of 100 to 200 people at any given site, rotating from one data center project to another. So while our buildings don't house as many employees as traditional offices, due to our well-paying jobs and collateral job creation, the jobs we enable pay significant income tax revenue without notably straining public transportation infrastructure. And by the way, speaking of taxes, what many people don't realize is that we help keep property taxes in check. Data centers pay significantly more in property taxes than regular office buildings because the jurisdiction's tax based on how much capital is invested. And it takes a lot of money to build a data center. Data centers typically have many times the capital investment of other commercial properties. I can take you right now within an hour and a half of here to more than 5 million square feet of empty factory space, totally empty. Never had anything in it. Some of it, they haven't even poured the concrete floors in them. And those buildings have been there for years and years and years. Now you see what I'm saying. AI workloads are far more intensive than traditional ones. They rely heavily on specialized hardware, of course, the GPUs, which consume massive electricity. They need advanced cooling and generate heat, and all the switchgear has to be tested every single month. All that requires maintenance people. Traditional evaporative cooling towers, we don't use them anymore. You won't see them at data centers anymore. You don't see big plumes of steam in the wintertime because they're not generated at the data centers anymore. Everything is waterless. Everything is free flowing air cooling, especially in the cold climates. And that's how they keep things cool. Yeah, Delamio says, wouldn't send my kids to Fairfax County schools today. I don't blame you. In fact, if it wasn't for the fact we have a pretty good school here for my grandkids, I'd be homeschooling them. Seriously, I think traditional education is obsolete. And it's not only leaving our kids behind because the teachers don't have the skills. They don't have the skills to teach our kids in this modern society. We have to teach them so much more than what they're learning in school. You know, my grandkids can speak some of 3 different languages, Spanish, Japanese, and English, and it's going to get better. And it's not because of school, it's because of me. Data center operators, especially the hyperscalers, of course, Microsoft and Google and Amazon and OpenAI and xAI, they're actively pursuing behind the meter or on-site power generation. And that means more maintenance. It means more infrastructure. It means more construction, more tax revenue, especially from property taxes. And the natural gas turbines. One of the things about natural gas, I'll be really quick here because we're almost out of time, is we drill for oil all the time, all over the country. And we hit it sometimes, and sometimes we don't, but we hit natural gas. Now you might think, gee, that's great. No, it's not. Because if there's no pipeline close to you, you just cap the well and move on. You just cap the well and move on. Not kidding. You go down here to East Tennessee, there are thousands of wells that are drilled. No revenue. Why? No pipeline. It would be a great place to put a data center because you have all that natural gas and you can generate your own electricity right there on site. No pipeline needed. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. All right. Well, I think I've beat the data center horse to death. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid to go to your city council meeting and say, hey, listen, I listened to America Free Radio last night, and I think I have a different perspective. I think we'd like to have that data center here, but we have a couple of things we want. It has to be good looking. You can't use any of our water, and you got to generate your own electricity. And you know what they'll say? Deal. How about that? Deal. And by the way, I have 6 grandkids that want to work here. So let's see what you can do about that. And there you go. And that's America Free Radio. I've been here 2 hours with you. My name is Brooks Agnew. I appreciate you guys, especially in the chat room. Thanks to Tonka Dave, Delamiao, Om3 Texas, Boy Dogs 2, Real Old Dog. Thank you guys so much for being here and supporting. And don't forget about Foxhole. We had Jets and Flintstone out there. We had Rasta out there. Thanks you guys so much for being here. I know it's hard to believe it's Wednesday and Wednesday is gone. We've had another great show in the can. Peace, Earth Explorers. Now go and do great things and be good to one another. Look for the good in others and help it to grow a little bit every day. And before long, you'll save the planet. That's how we do it. That's how we do it. All right. We'll see you on Sunday night right here on America Free Radio. This is Brooks Agnew saying, peace, Earth Explorers.